Hi, and welcome to today's episode of The True Show. I'm Leslie Lambert.
And I'm Nick Gelfand.
So Nick, what are we talking about today?
Our first topic is there's a town for sale, an actual full town for sale. Beaufort, Wyoming, which is being advertised as the smallest town in the United States, is scheduled to go up for auction this month. The auction is set for noon, April 5th. And unlike some of the other things we've offered for sale, this is actually an affordable price. It starts at only $100,000.
$100,000
so we don't have
for
to
a
pool
whole
our money
town.
together. Exactly.
So I understand the town's got, so what's included in the purchase price here, you've got a convenience store, a gas station, 10 acres of land, a post office, a cell tower, a parking lot, a modular home, garage, a cabin, tool shed, a schoolhouse from 1905, and its own zip code. That's a bargain.
It's fantastic. And for those of you who don't know where Beaufort is, it's kind of near Cheyenne, which is I guess the capital of Wyoming, or the most populated city. Wyoming is the least populated state in the United States, with somewhere over 500,000 total inhabitants in the entire state. This town, though, at one point did boast somewhere around 2,000 residents. It traces its origins to the 1860s and the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. At some point between then and now, we have one resident, Mr. Don Sammons, who is looking to move on with his life, looking to move to Colorado, retire. He is the mayor, so actually I guess with the town you will be taking care of the duties of the mayor. And
the mayor is the only resident, and yeah, I guess it's easy to control your town members that way.
The elections will probably
You're a shoo-in.
Yeah, probably are rigged. I wonder how the taxes work, though. Do you have to pay yourself taxes? I mean, does he collect taxes?
I don't know. That's an interesting proposition, and I guess
what does he assess his house?
Yeah, whatever he wants. Interestingly enough, coming from the Northeast, towns and property is not so plentiful that you could own a whole town all by yourself,
Sure.
Typically speaking. But I guess out west, it's a little more common to find these small little towns. So the next smallest town that we could find is Gross, Nebraska, has a population of 2, and it's 0.10 miles big. So that's your
right. And Beaufort is 0.02 square miles.
Square miles.
So
yeah.
it is definitely slightly smaller, and certainly has that extra one less inhabitant, though.
So if you've ever wanted to own your own town, go west, young man.
Our next topic today is rent to own. It's something that tends to come up in real estate whenever there's a downturn in the market, and we kind of want to explain it to you a little bit more.
So typically what will happen often is a property owner may not be able to sell their home for as much as they either need to or want to get for the property, but they don't have a personal purpose for it. So perhaps they've needed to move out of the area for another job, and now they have 2 single-family homes, one where they used to live and one where they've moved to. So instead of selling it, they'll consider, okay, maybe we'd be better off renting it and waiting for the market to turn around. And as an enticement to perhaps some better quality renters, or renters who are perhaps almost qualified to purchase a home, they offer a rent-to-own option. So, basically part of their rent every month is negotiated to be allowed as a down deposit or a down payment on the property after a certain amount of time.
And what I find interesting is, obviously, typically, in a typical situation, both parties would probably rather transfer the seller would rather sell it to that person that's going to be rent to owning,
Yeah.
and the person that's going to rent to own would probably rather buy it. But there's some circumstances that are not allowing this to happen. So it's kind of like they're kicking that stone forward.
Yeah. I imagine typically the people involved are, maybe you own a home that is worth less than when you paid for it, and you don't want to sell it via a short sale because of maybe the credit implications. And if you're the tenant, perhaps you were previously a homeowner that lost your home to foreclosure, or maybe you're almost a first-time home buyer who's got a little bit of credit ding, and you're working on cleaning up your credit, and this will buy you some time and allow you to have your money every month towards rent actually go towards the purchase. But yeah, I think what you said is true. It's definitely sort of like kicking that stone down the road.
by stone, we probably mean can, but
Wow.
stone did come to mind first. And the one thing, it's kind of like, if you were to put it in perspective, I guess the most ideal form of, having a house is owning it, or, condo or whatever it might be. I guess the opposite of that would be renting it, and then rent own is somewhere kind of in between, almost like a stepchild, and it's tough to really gauge it. From my standpoint, I think the hardest thing to kind of wrap my head around is that the fact is that you have to actually set the price, the future purchase price. Most of the time has to be set right then and there when you're making this transaction happen. So what happens if the market improves, in 2-3 years, when they typically end up purchasing, or what happens if the market declines? Neither party tends to be happy,
Right.
And it's, but without setting that price right up front, it's literally just a regular rent then.
Yeah, it is. And it's absolutely something that you'd want to get an attorney involved with, because there are specialized contracts involved with rent to own, because as Nick said, you do have to set these guidelines up in the front. So you are entering into a purchase contract, basically, as the tenant. You are signing a form of a purchase contract that's saying that you agree after a certain amount of time, if you're able to get a mortgage, and typically you have to show proof that you attempted to get one at that agreed upon time, that you will pay the agreed upon price. So yeah, there is always that risk that the market will change, but I suppose when either party is sort of in a bad spot at the beginning of the transaction, sometimes they figure it's worth the gamble.
Yeah, and we see it, as we said earlier, kind of when the market tends to downturn. I see it a lot with people who are jumping into flipping houses, and they'll be all gung ho. They'll buy this house, they'll remodel it, and then they put it on the market, and they're not getting the offers that they were thinking. And of course, there's carrying costs involved with any sort of flip or any sort of investment in general. And it tends to be, a plan B for these folks, because they just feel like they have no other options.
Right, right. Yep, so, go in with your eyes open. It can be a great solution for the right kind of people, but as with anything, it's got its loopholes that you got to keep your eyes open
Yeah,
for.
there's pros and cons, and
Yeah.
and it's funny how you usually see it in the downturns of the market,
Absolutely.
where,
It's
when the
when you
market
can't sell something for as much as you needed to. I mean,
Absolutely.
basically, that's when you bump into it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's the end of our show for today. Thank you for being with us. My name is Nick Gelfand.
I'm Leslie Lambert, and be sure to check us out at trueshow.com.